Welcome, KCIW listeners at 100.7 LPFM or online at kciw.org, Brookings, Oregon. Hi to our syndicated listeners at KZZH 96.7 FM, Access Humboldt, Eureka, California, and to our listeners over in Medford and Ashland, KSKQ 89.5 Ashland and 94.1 Medford. And when I say that, it's like, hi, friends in all those places, and I'm so glad to call you friends. Well, this is Joanie Lindenmeyer, Joyously Free Radio and Gadio with me, the best-selling author of An Amazing Love Story, a co-author of Joyously Free and Healing Religious Hurts with Elizabeth Ann Atkins. Well, I'm a resident of Harbor, Oregon, a retired high school teacher, a recent author who's published 3 books in 2 years, created an audiobook, and with friend and film producer Michael Gorse, we created Wowzer, and wow, is that hitting the big screens. But most of all, what I love most is right now, right here with you. I love life and love being the producer and host of this high-energy, joyously free Gadio radio show, so named by my friends Will and Viv. This show talks about LGBTQ plus stories and tips, along with religion, church, faith, spirituality, and joy. The abundant joy and freedom that we all have, and we can have even more of if we just realize we're in this together. So I want to welcome you for that. There's no part of no hate speech, no hate behaviors, and no bullying on this show and in my life. I blast my life and with this show with 3 C's: courage, confidence, and collaboration. Together, let's sparkle and seek understanding. Let's think out of the box or no boxes at all. Be open as an open parachute. So we begin every radio show, Gadio show, with our daily salutation. I will say it's a brand new day, and please, listeners, your response is, it's never been lived before. Let's give it a try. It's a brand new day.
It's never been lived before.
Oh, look at that, everybody. The guest is ready to jump on here. But first, we need to pray. Oh, my gosh. Dear Lord, let's open our hearts as we ask the divine to shine light on our community and our world. I excitedly believe in hope, in the power of the spiritual, and that Jesus, God's Spirit, whatever name you put on a higher being, is always with me and always with you. Be not afraid or troubled, saddened or depressed. Joy and peace are an internal expression of love and harmony. It's already within us. We only have to reach deep within and let it out. Let's center ourselves. Calmly, take a deep breath in with the good and out with doubt. Again, a bigger, deeper breath in through your nose with hope and out from your mouth with fears. Last one, take a big, deep breath in with joy and out with worry or despair. In the name of Mother Earth, Creator God, Jesus, Redeemer, the blowing winds of the Holy Spirit, we say, hi, thank you for this beautiful day, Jesus, God, Spirit. Thank you for being with us. Well, for today's reading, it was a real quick one that I saw in a prayer book that I have, and it's anonymous. I don't even have a name of a person, but I love this little sentence or quote. Here it is. Happy relationships are built on blocks of patience. I'm going to repeat that. Happy relationships are built on blocks of patience. And when I read that, all I could think of was long time ago, there was a piece of string on a table, and I was with my spiritual director. And my spiritual director said, Joanie, you can never push a string, but you can pull a string. And that, to me, was patience. The more that we're patient and kind with people, then life is better. Happier relationships happen. Harmonious things happen. It's not being in control and trying to push or force something, but it's the concern and the care, the compassion of patience. So my challenge, I guess, for myself today and for you is to be more patient, to think of that string and only pull gently, helping people to be the best them, helping you to be the best you. Oh, Lord, thank you for being with us. Thank you for lifting up our friends and family. May we always find guidance and healing from you. Thank you, Holy One, from hearing us and being with us in our silence and in our words. Bless us to do your will today. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Yes. All right. Well, I have got a guest speaker here today. Friend and not a foe, friend, definitely a friend.
Yes.
And I want to introduce everybody to Bret Cecil. Bret is a retired full-time community volunteer. And our topic today is looking at the bigger picture of life. Looking at the bigger picture of life. Welcome, Bret.
Thank you, Joanie. It's so good to be with you today.
Oh, and it's good to be with you, too. Thank you for driving down the coast.
Absolutely. Beautiful drive today, too.
Good deal. Good deal. And not too many logging trucks?
Just a few.
Okay. Where did you come from today?
Came from Port Orford, which is where I live full time.
Cool. Well, jump right in. Tell us a little bit about who you are, Bret.
So I've lived in Oregon for almost 9 years. So coming up on 10 years. Let's just round it up really easy.
Okay.
So nearly 10 years I've lived in Oregon. And I came here after some difficult financial times, getting through the 2008 debacle that so many people have lived through. And I had sold my home in Ukiah where I lived after I'd lived in San Francisco for almost 20 years before that. And I had a couple of very dear friends that lived here in Port Orford. And they said, why don't you come up and live in Port Orford? You can stay at our place until you get settled in. And of course, I had critters. I had 3 dogs and 3 cats. That was all part of my farm. I had sold off all of my livestock, but there's no way, you can't sell your kids. That just feels too weird to me, or even give them away. So I hauled them along. But that made it really difficult for me to find a place to live, even to rent something. Most landlords didn't want pets in the building. So, of course, my friends were open to the idea. They lived on a beautiful 80-acre parcel that essentially was undeveloped, except for their little house that sat right.
So there you went. A brand new life for you.
Yeah.
A brand new life.
A whole new curve.
Wow.
And that was when I got really involved in community activities and full-time volunteering.
Wow. Where was your very first place that you volunteered? Was that in San Francisco or Ukiah or here?
I've always done some volunteer work things, but usually it's just one of those people that comes and sets up chairs or sets up a table. It helps to get a venue put together, but not leading it or heading it. I would say, since I've been here in Oregon, that my first volunteer position was working with our Indivisible chapter in North Curry County.
Oh, okay.
That was where I would say I actually started my full-time volunteer work.
Right on. Them. Right on. Bigger than setting up tables and chairs, but you have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
Because it's a heart. And to move from employment or a business to a volunteer is a big transition.
And of course, that was a time when we had a big change in our federal government. A lot of folks, and especially my women friends, were very concerned about how their lives were going to move ahead. That was when the Me Too movement began.
Okay.
And it was the first women's march. I unfortunately wasn't in Port Orford yet, but the first women's march in Port Orford brought about 300 people together, not just women, but, we guys got to get in there too and support our women friends and loved ones.
Absolutely.
So that was the first big women's march in Port Orford.
Wow.
And so I came then in July of that year and kind of saw these folks are out on the street. On every Friday, they were out with their picket signs and their banners and putting out some message of some type.
And what were they marching for? What were they standing up for?
Mostly at the time, they were countering the election of our new president. That was Donald Trump at the time.
Okay.
So
That's what their mission was.
Yeah, people were not pleased with how that turned out and how it was moving.
Right.
So that was a movement that said we need to make a change from the top.
Right.
And it took 4 years to do.
Yep. Well, and that's looking at life at a bigger picture.
Correct.
When you can look at everything and say, hey, this isn't going well for my family. This isn't going well for my community. That's when you step up and make a change. And it reminds me of Pride, because Pride began. When was the very first Pride?
The first Pride, I know you and I were talking about that before we came on air. And I was born and raised in Long Beach, California.
Okay.
So I was just trying to remember. I think it was probably one of the local Long Beach Prides that I attended. But I was telling you that I do remember in the late, I want to say it was 1988, 1989. My partner at the time had his partner before me had passed away from AIDS. And he had put together a quilt panel to put in the national quilt. He and I made a trip to D.C.
Oh, you did?
And it was the last showing of the quilt in one entire piece because they just knew it was too big for them to haul it around the country anymore.
Right.
So we went and installed the panel of his late partner's quilt in the national quilt. And it was right after that for anybody who knows Orange County in California, it's a very conservative district. Lou Sheldon, who was a very, I want to say, religious man. So anybody who might know him can make their assumptions as to how religious he was. But he was countering any activities going on. And I remember going to Santa Ana, which is a rather small town. I believe it's the county seat in Orange County. But there was a pride parade in one of the parks there, and they were coming to counter the pride activity that we were having that day.
Right.
So that was one of the first very memorable pride events that I attended.
Wow.
In 1988, I believe.
Awesome. And that
long
was about
explanation to get to that answer, right?
I know. But again, it's back to looking at the bigger picture because you've experienced so much. And the 1980s are in a way so different than 2020s, but at the same time, there's very similar things going on if we're looking at things.
Yeah.
I want to jump back into you talked about growing up in Long Beach, then you went to San Francisco and the HIV/AIDS. Did that impact you personally?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
it impacted me when I lived in.
Because people don't understand the personal connection of
Well,
things.
and we've moved so far beyond it. We're not away from the illness, the disease itself.
Right.
I mean, that's still there, but I think because so many of us feel like it's an illness that can be controlled and we can manage it now that it's not such a big deal. It is a big deal. And then it was.
Right.
Because it was essentially a death sentence in those days for anybody to have that. But even Long Beach.
Because there was no treatment. There was no.
You were treating symptoms. It was like having a cold. You couldn't cure the cold or cure AIDS, but you could help alleviate some of the symptoms. So help someone feel better until they were no longer.
Right.
So Long Beach had a pretty good sized gay community then. And people were turning up sick here and there. And Los Angeles, of course, was a much larger population, and we knew that was going on there. So just getting involved at that level and trying to do some things that would help our individual local people, taking them meals and making sure that they had connections with their doctors and finding doctors that would even treat people at the time was really difficult.
Right. And there's volunteer. That's volunteer.
There's the volunteer thing. It's service.
It goes back
service
to that.
to your community, I think. People do it all the time without realizing what it is.
Right.
Which I prefer it to be that way. It's just part of who I am.
Right.
I'm not looking for some award or any recognition for it. Right.
Yeah.
It's just something.
It's coming from your heart, and you want to share, you want to love, you want to serve.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So moving on. Okay, Long Beach to San Francisco to Port Orford, and let's just switch back to the gay community.
Right.
Is there a gay community in Port Orford?
There is, surprisingly enough. I've been really surprised working with South Coast Oregon Pride. Really great group of folks. And so they do our party in the park here in Brookings every June.
June 7th, Sunday, June 7th, everybody. Mark that on your calendar. Okay. So you're working with them.
Yeah. So just interacting with them. We do some Q cafes, which we have one here in
Q meaning queer.
Queer cafe.
So it's a cafe of people gathering.
It's just a place and a time that we set aside and people can gather and visit. Usually there's almost always food in the middle of it. You know how that works. And anyone that knows Jaden Ruff, a shout out to Jaden Ruff with the Health Equity Coalition, always making sure that there's some way for us to have something to eat in the middle of it when we come together and have community. So, and I did, to get a little off topic, have some time with Jaden over the weekend. The Rural Organizing Project had their annual caucus this past weekend. And so I was able to attend that on Saturday and got to spend some time with Jaden, doing some planning and breaking down of what's gone on in the past year and what we can look forward to as our topic today, looking into the future.
Exactly.
So those were some really interesting times with Jaden. And Jaden's quite the organizer.
Oh, she is. She is.
Very heart and soul of getting people organized and really good about extrapolating ideas. And some of us like to just talk and let stuff roll out, but she's really good about figuring out what the high points are of what you're saying. So I've enjoyed working with that group of folks, and it's just something I enjoy, meeting people in my own community, and I've been really, really amazed at the young queer community that comes out, especially in Gold Beach. There's a handful. Well, and then I'll just say our dear friend Doris, anyone that might know Doris.
Doris and Kathy from Gold Beach? Oh, my gollies. Okay, talk about that a little bit.
So Doris always comes and sorry, Doris, if I offend in any way, but Doris, I believe now is north of 92.
Yeah.
And Doris comes it's once a month, but she comes to the Q Cafe in Gold Beach, and she's just a doll. She's so adorable to talk with and talk about.
Right.
She's got so much history and so many interesting stories to tell. So it's a lot to try and take in. I'm encouraging her to write a book.
Yes. Yeah. Very cool.
She should talk to you.
Yeah. Yeah. And she's also written some poetry books already. So, and her wife, Kathy, just precious, precious, precious.
I barely know Kathy. I haven't seen her a lot. Apparently she's having some difficulties getting around.
Some mobility issues.
Yeah, mobility issues. But she's a very wonderful woman as well.
Exactly. And volunteer. She loves to volunteer and be involved in people's lives. And I think that's what you're talking about, is being involved in people's lives. You're such a good listener. Where did you learn those skills, Bret?
Listening. It's practice.
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 Okay. Do you think it was part of your family upbringing or your business
Well, I was
background?
raised in a rather large family. So I have 3 siblings. I'm the eldest of 4 with a baby sister, all born between July 1960 and November 1964. So it was a busy time in my family in the early 60s.
Wow.
My dad was a motorcycle cop in Long Beach.
Okay.
And my mother was a medical transcriber. She probably still would transcribe if she were working. I can't remember her not doing that.
Yeah.
And it was back in the day she worked on a typewriter. So she would bring work home and work at home too. So the little diagrams, the anatomical photographs with the little stickers and everything, because they had to make the reports to put in the charts that the doctor signed.
Right.
So it was interesting work.
Right.
But I think I had to learn to listen because it was a big group. So everybody has to take their turn. All of us talking at once, no one gets to hear anything. So you have to learn to have some order to the way that you introduce yourself, the way you interact with others.
Right. And interaction. And isn't that what makes us happy? When it's our relationships when we can talk and listen, not control somebody.
Right.
Yep. Exactly.
And we always want to add our 2 cents, right? Sometimes we give 5 cents, but we always want to add our 2 cents to what's going on and hope to be heard.
Exactly. So what are some things that you're doing now that bring out your listening skills and your speaking skills as a volunteer?
Well, currently I volunteer my time. I guess my main role currently right at this time is that I'm seeking elected office to our Oregon State House.
Okay.
So that's our House District 1 is the district that we live in.
Right on.
Reside. And so I'm seeking that seat currently. Running that campaign is a bit of work. And I want to hear from people. Some people want to hear me speak. I hear myself all the time. I don't know that I have so much to say. But my reason for running for that seat is I want to hear people's voices. What are your needs? What do you think would be helpful in your slice of the world? What could our state house do to help your life be better? Is it a safety issue in your community? Might it be a medical situation? Of course, we always need more doctors.
Yeah.
We're always looking for more support staff in our medical community. But housing,
especially rural.
Yes, and housing is a big issue here as well. And those two things like butt heads. So without housing, we can't bring in more staff, new staff. So those two things kind of run into each other. So I'm always looking for ideas how we can expand housing, how we can improve our medical care. There's always a concern about having access to food. We do, at least in Brookings, have this weekly farmers market. I believe it's Wednesday and Saturday.
Yep.
So there's some really good access there for people to obtain locally grown and locally sourced food, fresh food, which I think is really great. So I'm going to be trying to spend a little time there tomorrow morning.
Right.
Get out in the farmer's market.
Right. Did you ever see yourself in this kind of a role to listen so intently to people to find out what their needs are? You're shaking your head. No way.
No, I never imagined it.
Never imagined it. And wow, look at it now. It's
just developed that way. People are so gracious and want to help and offer their help, but don't know where to make that contact. I have an idea on something, so it's great to get ideas from people. And then
what do you do with those ideas?
Right. And so here's this thing in the title is representative, right? A House representative. Should I prevail in my election, I would be able to bring people's ideas and present those in a way legislatively that can make a difference in people's lives.
Right. Well, and haven't you been doing that all of your life, but just not in a political way?
Right.
Yeah.
Not in an elected form.
Not in an elected form. Exactly.
And representative is, like I started to say, is the key word to me. So you're representing people. It's not about what I think. It's about what the people think. I'm gathering that information together. And again, thanks, Jaden, for helping me understand how to pull those ideas together. Because we speak with our ideas and our thoughts, but we don't always have a cohesive way to present that to someone that can take that forward and make some action with it.
Right. Action. That's the thing. Action steps.
So I've been,
steps.
one of the reasons I got involved here is I'm a little disappointed with our representation that we currently have. For as much as I love our representatives and I understand the difficulty of the job, I would like to see them on the ground here in the district, which, just to lay this out, it is a bit of work. So House District 1 encompasses all of Curry County, most of southern Coos County, and most of western Douglas County. So from I-5 in Winston, so it's Melrose, Greene, Winston, Dillard, and Round Prairie for anybody that knows that stretch of the Roseburg area. And they aren't Roseburg, but from there west all the way across Highway 42 through Camas Valley, and the little town remote right at the Coos County line with Douglas County, all the way into Bandon. And then from Bandon north up to Allegheny, all of that territory, then from Bandon south all the way here to Brookings, is a district, House District 1. It's about 100 by 100 miles. It's a big area.
Wow.
But we're all really similar that live in these rural areas.
And one representative.
One representative.
For all of those voices. And you think of the power in that and the responsibility that goes
The
with
responsibility is the part I think about.
that. Right. And you're going to get a variety of different thoughts.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yep.
So,
and then
really
how do you put that all
fantastic
together?
people with great ideas. So my thing is, I think we should be having town hall meetings because I know our senators, our federal senators, our U.S. senators do it. Our U.S. representatives do it at least once a year, typically. And I know I encouraged our representatives to do it last year, and they did. It was a little bit rough. People came in with lots of ideas. It wasn't very well laid out, so there wasn't a lot of order to gathering those ideas. I think people were a little ticked off about some things at the time, and they wanted their voices heard. So I've been encouraging our representatives to do this again.
Cool.
Sometime soon. So that's just one of my pledges in being a representative, is to be where people can reach me.
Right on. And that's the point. They want to reach you. They want to be able to tell whoever the representative is what's going on. I remember as a child, my parents saying, if you don't agree with something, write a letter to the person. And I remember there was an issue with a Catholic priest that I had, and and so I wrote to the local San Diego bishop at the time, and I got a response. With my books, I've sent all my books to President Biden and President Trump. I have received thank you letters from both of them for sending them the books. So I think letter writing is another way. And are people available to write letters now to representatives and political officials?
Absolutely. And for those who want to write a letter, kudos to you. But I don't want to discourage anyone writing, but understand that because of some of the postal issues, it's about what can be in a letter. There are lots of requirements as to how those are accepted when they get to the State House or to the Capitol. They have to go through screenings and checks to make sure there's no weird things in the letters that can harm anyone. Your best bet, if you can do it, is to write an email or make a phone call to them.
There you go. Would you repeat that? The best way to use your voice is now.
If you can do, and I know a lot of people that live in the district aren't tech savvy, but if you can write an email is the best and safest way to actually get your voice heard. Calling on the phone, I call my senator and congresswoman's office fairly regularly. Okay. And there's always somebody on the other end of the phone, or at least a voicemail where you can leave a message. And they're always willing to listen to what you have to say. And they make sure that they keep a tally sheet and let the senator or the congressperson know what is it that people are calling about.
Right.
These are the issues I need to pay attention to. And so it helps them to steer the district that they represent, steer the needs of the people into Congress or into our State House, so that we're paying attention to the needs of the people and not just what I would think as a representative.
Right. And this brings back to me the point, and I know we're down to just a couple minutes, but with the topic of looking at the bigger picture of life, I want to ask you personally, in your personal life, how many phone calls do you make a day, a week, or a month to your personal friends and family so that you're staying connected with them? Yeah,
unfortunately, not so many to my personal friends and family, but to a lot of my constituents and people that I work with.
Right.
And that I help out. I have a lot of elderly friends that, surprise, surprise, who have mobility issues and do need help with things. And so I check on them regularly and have plenty of phone calls with them. Sorry, Mom, I owe you a phone call.
Yeah, there you go. And it's a reminder for all of us that are listening right now, because that's where it starts. If we can begin and do that with our friends and our family, then we can take the next step to other people. So, Bret, we are down to just a little bit. How about a quick summary about looking at the bigger picture of life for you?
Well, for me, it's trying not to get lost in some of the downsides that we see of everything and trying to look forward to what we can do to make a difference moving forward. And I know it's a really hot time this past weekend. We've had some issues happen with some violence within our political setups. And I personally I'm not going to take any of that. I'll take it in stride. I'm going to move past that. I'm trying to be fearless around any of that. I've had people ask me, aren't you afraid to be out there amongst the people? And I have absolutely no fear around that. So
good for you.
I'm hard-headed that way.
Good for you. Good for you. Well, I tell you, it has been a joy just listening to your perspective, where you've come from, where you're going, and where you're headed. So I really thank you so much for being on Joyously Free. And you are a joy.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me in.
Oh, thank you, Bret. Thank you. And you know what? I want to thank you, the listeners. You've been listening in today, and hopefully you've gleaned some golden nuggets. You've been inspired. Maybe you've been challenged to learn something from Bret that you can incorporate into your own life. I loved having Bret here, and I hope you have too on this radio show. We also want to give a lot of thank you notes to Tom Bozak, Candace and Rose, and sound man, Mr. Mike Gorse, once again, always making things happen. We want to make sure that all the listeners, KCIW, KZZH, and KSKQ, that you have access to knowing you can get a hold of KCIW at any time online. Just look it up. Let's give a special thanks to Steve Van Cleve, Sally, and Todd Roy for sponsoring this show. And most of all, I just want to say to everybody, you know what? Today's the day. Smile big, wear bright colors, and think forward like. We, the people, includes everyone. Exactly. And that's the shirt Bret is wearing today. We, the people, includes everyone. Everyone. Happy day, everyone.